Rockfin. Let's see how you're doing over here. Rockfin's in the house. Go Rockfin, go Rockfin, go.
Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, guys. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Quick shout out to everyone watching on Rockfin, YouTube, and Twitter. What is going on, guys? It is Tuesday. We're making it through the week. We're getting there. I want to give quick shout outs to people in the chat. Dan will be here in just a bit. All right. Quick shout out to Staccato David. Thanks so much for becoming a Sabby member. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. Shout out to Staccato. What's going on? Kevin says, keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Kevin. Appreciate you. Shout out to Miguel says, peace. And thanks so much for this too, Miguel. Great interview earlier today on Hardlands Media, Sabs. Thanks so much. So I was on Hardlands just like an hour ago. That interview was on Rockfin, so definitely check that out, guys. Shout out to Sylvia, who's a Sabby member, says, well, I finally got here ahead of time instead of coming in on the tail end of the show. And welcome, Staccato David. One definition is a musical term. Are you a musician or a singer? That's a good question. Let us know, Staccato. Let us know. Shout out to Hannah G, says, let's go. Greetings, Kathy. Great guest. Love Dan Cohen. All right. Awesome. Shout out to Dabby Dabs. Hello, Sabby and fam. Greetings, Eric T. Red, who's a Sabby member, says, hey, happy Tuesday, all. What's going on? Brent says, go Tuesday show. Shout out to Steve, says, hello, everyone. Greetings, Claybo. I'm sorry, but we've all seen the toxicology reports. Looks like he popped a fent to avoid getting caught with it. Bad love. Also was on meth and a bunch of other ish. That's deadly as F. Well, we're going to get into that conversation tonight. Shout out to See the Change. Hi, Sabby and fellow comrades. I hope Yee gets sued big. Something needs to stop his destructive behavior or at least interrupt it. It always seems he's rewarded for his inexcusable antics. Yeah, we're doing a call-in segment tonight. I don't usually do them on Tuesdays, but we are going to have a discussion about that on call-in after the show because I do want to hear what you guys, how you feel about this. Shout out to Rick, says, hey, y'all. Greetings, Sean Miller says, yo. Shout out to Blanco SoCal. Happy Tuesday. Let's get into these combos. Free Julian Assange. That's right, Blanco. What's going on? John Kemper says, peace, love, solidarity, beautiful people. Shout out to Delthea, who's also a Sabby member, says, hey, hey, hey. What's going on? Peggy says, yay, I made it just in time. Hi, everyone. Hello, Peggy. Hello, the Peg. What's going on? Notori sends lots and lots of love. Greetings, crazy boy. Hey, Sabby. Hey, crazy. Shout out to, and I realize I've been saying your name incorrectly for over a year. Shout out to Wary Pilgrim. Hey, everybody. What's going on? Brandy says, hello, everyone. Shout out to Gamer says, hello, y'all. What's going on? Dan O'Neill says, love. Love for all. Guys, go ahead and do me a favor. I forget sometimes. Go ahead and smash that like button. That helps me out with the algorithm. Let's go ahead and do the damn thing. Want to give a quick shout out to people who are Sabby patrons. Let's go ahead and say hello to these wonderful folks. Share this image here. La-di-da-di-da. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Here they are: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and of course, the ultimate. You can see all of their names listed here. They're just being rock stars, doing what they do. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen under the little ticker there. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate it. You really do help me out. Thank you. Thank you so much. Word. All right, guys, what are we talking about tonight? We have a pretty good show tonight, at least I think. Let me go ahead and share the thumbnail with you. Okay. Here we go. Tonight, we are discussing Kanye West, denial about George Floyd's death. And again, that is going to be the call-in discussion for tonight after the show. I really want to hear what you guys have to say about that. I'm also going to discuss, so Dan Cohen joins. Dan Cohen will be here in a bit. He has a lot to discuss. I told you guys that I did want to talk more about what's going on in Haiti. So I have been trying to cover that. Dan has actually been on the ground in Haiti. I had the chance to meet him at the Assange rally. So he has a lot to talk about. I'm also going to discuss Sysco truckers arrested. Yes, that did happen right here in Massachusetts. It's getting crazy. It's getting out of hand. And we're going to discuss the Massachusetts teacher strike, which is also underway. Workers have had enough, ladies and gentlemen, and more people are speaking out. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with one of the shorter stories first. So let's go ahead and get into this teacher strike. We're going to start with this story. So, there's a lot of misconceptions about teachers in this country. And this is something I know, having worked in the education system. People, sometimes they'll make these comments that teachers get the summers off, so they shouldn't complain. By the way, that's not necessarily true. I know teachers that have worked, actually do work during the summer too. And the ones that do not, usually those that I have known, they've picked up a second job. So they'll have a job during those summer months to kind of make up that income. But teachers work really hard. And not everyone can go on strike if they're a teacher, especially if you don't have a union. In some states, it's illegal to have a teachers union. I know that was the case for some of my friends that teach in North Carolina. So they had a march and protest about that as well. But right here in Massachusetts, which is number 1 in public education in the United States, there are teachers that have decided to go on strike in Haverhill and Malden. By the way, it's pronounced Haverhill, not Haverhill, even though that's the way it's spelled. Welcome to New England, where the towns and the cities do not, the names don't make sense. And sometimes they are now not pronounced the way that they are spelled. So welcome. But they really tried to hold out here for contract negotiation, and apparently it did not happen. So let's go ahead and get into this story here. Teachers in Haverhill and Malden to strike Monday after contract talks fail. So I held out on reporting this story. I found out about it over the weekend. Eric told me about this. And I held off on reporting it because I knew that on Monday, that would be the decision whether or not they were deciding to go on strike. Teachers in Haverhill and Malden will walk picket lines on Monday as contract talks between unions and school teachers in both cities failed to reach agreements on Sunday. Make this larger. The strike will keep thousands of students in the 2 cities more than 7,700 in Haverhill and 6,100 in Malden out of class while educators protest outside their schools. Members of both unions had voted to authorize strikes. So let me make that very clear. Right now, those students are not in school because the teachers are on strike. And this is where I think the parents can come in and get involved too and advocate for the teachers having their contract negotiations met, because who is going to watch their kids while they're not in school if the parents are at work? Teachers and officials in both cities are trying to work out a new 3-year deal. Teacher strikes are illegal in Massachusetts. Now, this is very important, you guys. Remember how I just told you at the beginning of the story that in some states, it's illegal for teachers to go on strike. Welcome to Massachusetts. Though union leaders in both cities said members will be picketing Monday morning, in Haverhill, talks are expected to resume at 8 a.m. with the mediator, and the district announced that schools will be closed for students. We are disappointed. Now, this is coming from Tim Briggs, who's the president of Haverhill Education Association. If school leaders treat us the way they say they treat us, we would not be here. In Malden, the school committee announced it had reached an impasse in negotiating with union leaders around 7:30 p.m. during a city hall public meeting and would request a mediator from the State Department of Labor Relations. Deb, the president of Malden Education Association, said the union had been prepared to work through the night Sunday to reach a deal. Since they walked away from the table while we were still ready to bargain, the Malden Education Association members are on strike. At one point, a woman called out, "Solidarity forever, baby." An hour later, as the teachers left City Hall, they began shouting, "What do we want? A contract. When do we want it? Now." In Haverhill, talks will resume at 8 a.m. Monday, but district officials announced schools will be closed to students Monday. School employees are still expected to report to work. So let me get this straight. The teachers are on strike and they weren't there, but all the other school employees are still expected to go to work. To do what? If you're a cafeteria worker, why do you need to report on Monday to make food for students who are not there? After hours at the negotiating table over the weekend, we were not able to reach an agreement with the Haverhill Education Association, the union representing our teachers. While some progress was made over the last few days, we are extremely disappointed that union leadership and the Massachusetts Teacher Association has encouraged our teachers, to take this illegal action. Parents and caregivers can check with haverhillps.org for information about childcare and food services during a strike. Let me tell you something else about the food services here that I think you need to know. For some students, and you have to understand these districts here, like Haverhill tends to be more of a working class neighborhood. There's also poverty as well in Haverhill. Malden, it used to be working class, is getting a little bit gentrified, but large immigrant population in Malden as well. But like I said, gentrification is taking a hold there. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what these cities are like in Massachusetts. Malden is north of Boston. It's very close to Boston, probably about a 15-minute drive. Haverhill is further north in Massachusetts. It's actually closer to New Hampshire's border. Food services. There are some students, for the most part, the only time they get a meal Monday through Friday is when they get that free lunch and free breakfast at school. So when the teachers are on strike, that means some of those students will not get the chance to eat that day, that week. How long this ever ends up happening, this lasts. And this is why the officials need to go ahead and meet the demands of the teachers. Just something to point out. The Haverhill's union vote to authorize a strike Friday was followed by a mandate from the State Department of Labor Relations, ordering them not to vote on an authorization. Haverhill school officials warned against a strike because they said it would affect the city's children and families and violate the state law forbidding teachers' strikes. So see, this is the whole thing I was telling you about, affecting the children and the families. The school district and the Department of Labor Relations are asking a Salem Superior Court judge to issue an injunction against the Haverhill Education Association for its illegal strike, which would have a devastating effect on the students and families in Haverhill. Briggs said teachers have faced 7 years out of the past 20 with no pay increase. Let's go ahead and highlight this here. Teachers have faced 7 years out of the past 20 with no pay increase. Do you see the problem? And we have a year where we're going through inflation. Everything is more expensive now. Food at the grocery store is more expensive. By the way, forget trying to order anything from DoorDash or Grubhub. There's all these extra fees now. It's so much more expensive. And they haven't even given them a raise in over 20 years. Teachers are probably one of the most disrespected, thankless professions in the United States of America, because you have to have a college degree in order to teach. So that means you have to go to college. A lot of these teachers have student loan debt, and they don't even want to give them a raise, like at all. 20 years. It's sad to see. But now do you understand why they're going on strike? We are full steam ahead, something that's quite honestly taken our members by surprise and quite honestly taken our breath away is support from the community. Haverhill teachers were paid an average of about $74,300 in 2019-2020. That's according to the state data. That's about $10,000 less than the statewide average of $84,600. Let's talk about this salary here. Some of you watching this may look at this and think $74,000 a year. Oh, that's a lot. I wish I was making that money. Got to remember, we live in Massachusetts, and $74,000 a year in Massachusetts doesn't go far. Believe it or not, even for communities like Haverhill and communities like Malden, where I said gentrification has already made its way in. So these working class neighborhoods are becoming more expensive. So even though you're making $74,000 a year, and let's say you may live in Haverhill or outside of Haverhill, somewhere where it's cheaper to live, in Massachusetts, that does not get you far. Now add student loans on top of that. So just imagine. Now, if you're a teacher and you're making that, and let's say you're married, so you have a second income, you might be doing okay. But if you don't have a second income, that's not much here in Massachusetts. Malden teachers earn slightly more than the state average, roughly about $84,800 according to state data. Again, got to remember, Malden is closer to Boston. I said like 15 minutes outside. Okay. It's more expensive. The closer you get to Boston, the more expensive it gets. That's right. She's Black. Cost of living is always a factor. 100%. 100%. So you have to factor that in. In Haverhill, early Sunday afternoon, school committee member Paul addressed hundreds of picketing union members following a press conference with district officials. We all have an interest in taking care of the children and families of the city of Haverhill. That's the goal and objective of every teacher here today. If this strike happens tomorrow, there is going to be an impact on a lot of families. Haverhill's current contract expired July 1st, 2022, and a new agreement would be retroactive to that date and extend through June 30th, 2025. The school district said in a statement it is offering a wage package totaling an average increase of more than 10% over 3 years and increasing increasing pay for entry-level teachers. So I say this to this little offer that they're offering here. I say you need to go back and you need to do back pay for the 20 years where you were not giving them a raise. You need to do that on top of that. Briggs said the union is seeking a 7% pay increase for the contract's first year, plus 6% in the second year, and 5% in its final year. The union is also seeking to codify language to help diversify staff. That's according to Briggs as well. The Behavioral Education Association represent about 1,000 workers, including 800 teachers, plus other staff like clerks and security guards. The teachers are also seek contract language that would increase their participation on matters of behavioral health for individual students. Also, according to Briggs, we need to talk about this. Matters of behavioral health for individual students. That also costs money. And some of these schools that have more money, they actually have teachers that are trained to deal with those types of situations, right? Some schools here refer to it as an IEP, where students are put on an IEP. They used to call it, I don't like this, but when I was in high school, they used to call it LD. I don't like that term. I didn't like it. But there are teachers who are certified and trained to deal with those situations. Here's the problem. For some of the schools that don't have those resources, teachers that may not necessarily have that background and that training still have to teach those students, even though they don't know how to handle those situations. So there's a lot put on teachers' plate. And I have to say this in defense of teachers in this country. Teaching is not the same as it used to be. Today's teachers are expected to be teachers. They're expected to be a counselor. They're expected to be a therapist. They're expected to be a bodyguard. They're expected to be a cop. They're expected to do all these different things instead of just what they were supposed to do, which is teach. And that is because these schools have cut back on resources. They've cut back funding. They've made the classroom sizes larger so that they can pay less and have less teachers, all in an attempt to save money. Education usually gets hit first. There were signs of growing acrimony between both sides in Haverhill on Sunday. Briggs and other union members expressed anger at Mayor James Fiorentini, who said it's not adequately funding the city schools. What did I just tell you? Adequately funding. So I have to explain this for those of you who do not live in Massachusetts. Again, Haverhill, working class. Malden, for the most part, working class. These schools aren't funded as much as the schools that are in the wealthier suburbs here in Massachusetts. The reasons why Massachusetts is number one in public education in the United States is because of the schools that are in places like Concord, Lexington, Newton, Boston Academy, which is in Boston, but you have to test into it. So if you look at the top 10 schools in Massachusetts right now, most of them are these charter schools that you have to test into. Different in different states, but here you have to test into them. That's why we're number one in public education, is because of those schools. The schools in Boston public schools, are not ranked high. They lack a lot of resources. I've been in those schools. They don't have what they need. I was in a class doing a teacher observation when I was at the Elliott School in Boston, which is one of the better ones, by the way. They didn't even have textbooks for the kids. I said, well, where's the textbooks? And they said, yeah, we don't have that. I was like, well, how do the kids do the homework? How do they study? She's like, well, as the teacher, I have to print these work packets, which the teacher has to pay for, by the way. The school doesn't pay for that. And they take home those worksheet packets and they work off of those. So I have to offer another defense here for teachers to let people know you have to understand that teachers use a good chunk of their own salary to pay for classroom supplies and to pay for these materials that students may need to take home. Just keep that in mind. Fiorentini did not respond for requests for comment. The school's district press conference originally planned to be held outside Haverhill City Hall. Okay, Dan said he's about to join. Okay, sorry. Let me wrap this up. There's so much more I can go into with this because it's been a problem for a while. But it says they plan to be held outside Haverhill City Hall, was relocated at the last moment inside a private law office a few minutes walk away. It goes on to say there's one more part I do want to highlight here. At the protest on Sunday, the teachers are saying, whose schools are these? Our schools. And it goes on and on. Eric, can you put the link to this article in the chat? Because it's a long article, you guys. But we have to do something about the teachers here in this country. They are not protected. A lot of them, like I told you, they're in some of these states where it's illegal for them to go on strike. Some of them, it's illegal to even have a union. And then people wonder why the teachers just don't want to give it their all anymore, why they just give up. And they're like, the teachers aren't really trying with my student. Like, you guys got to understand what they're going through. And you got to think about it. Imagine having a class of like 15 students. And then the next year, you went from having 15 students to 30. That makes a big difference in how you teach and how you can help those students. Smaller class sizes are better because that gives you more time with individual students, especially if they're struggling with a particular subject. But when you increase the class sizes, that's less time that the teacher has to work with individual students if they need help. So you got to understand this. It's been a problem for a while. I will tell you again, we got to do something about funding public education in this country. It should not be based on property taxes. This is what happens if you're a school in a district where they don't have as much money for the property taxes, then the schools are underfunded and they're under-resourced. And it's very unfortunate. And something has to be done. And I think that funding should come from the federal government. Put all these schools on an equal level. And so we don't have this competition, but they need to pay those teachers. I don't even know how that's illegal. That's legal. Maybe in Massachusetts, or this will go back to the labor. Maybe in Massachusetts, they need to come up with some type of, I don't know, some type of rule or law that you have to do raises for these teachers. There's no way they should have been able to go 20 years and not give a teacher a raise. I don't even know how this was allowed. Years and not give. I don't know what that was. I clicked on the wrong thing. Sorry. I was trying to shout out Delthea's comment, but I think there's volume there. Oh, thanks so much, Eric. This is why I shouldn't do it on my own. Shout out to Delthea, who's been a Sabby member for 15 months. I think school systems should be ranked by their top 10 schools. Oh, excuse me. I think school systems should be ranked not by their top 10 schools, but by their bottom 10. That's a good point, Delthea. I never thought about it that way. That is a good point. That would change everything, right? If they shifted things in public education. We'll see. I see Dan is here. Dan, whenever you're ready, just give me a thumbs up. All right, all right. We'll even this out here. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Sorry for being late, but 2 thumbs up. I'm ready.
All right. Oh, no worries. No worries. All right, guys. My special guest tonight is Dan Cohen. He's a journalist and a filmmaker. Dan, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks a lot for having me.
So I was fortunate enough to meet you at the Assange rally in DC. Really love your work, particularly your work that you've been doing about Haiti. We have been focusing more about that on this channel because I feel like a lot of people just don't know like what's going on over there. I want to get your opinion about what just recently came out in reference to the U.S. government and Haiti. Now, this came from the Miami Herald, and they announced exclusive U.S. will support sending multinational rapid action force to Haiti. And I'm just going to read this first paragraph here. The United States has drafted a UN Security Council resolution that will encourage the immediate deployment of a multinational rapid action force to Haiti to address the nation's worst security and health crisis in decades. Now, that's according to a copy of the resolution obtained by McClatchy and the Miami Herald. Dan, this is interesting because I feel like when I did see you at the Assange protest, I did ask you, do you think that the United States government is going to use the protests that are happening in Haiti as an excuse to intervene? And here we are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so the U.S. is completely ignoring the popular nature of the protest, the fact that Haitian masses have come out to protest against the puppet of regime of de facto Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who was appointed by the U.S. a couple of weeks and the core group a couple of weeks after the assassination in July 2021 of President Jovenel Moise, and he's ruled ever since. And there's never been any kind of vote. It's totally against the Haitian Constitution for him to be to do what he's doing, and not only does he have no mandate, he's now asking for foreign military intervention, which, again, he just does not have the power to do. So it's completely illegal according to Haitian law. But in the American rules-based order, anything goes. So it's kind of just the wild, wild west. So the protests that the U.S. is completely ignoring, and just calling gangs. They're saying it's gang violence. It's gangs that are running these protests. And the fact is, the U.S. isn't just going to doesn't want to just support a multinational force. This is the U.S.'s idea completely. The U.S. is the country that put it forth at the UN Security Council. And yesterday there was a good debate between in the UN that was really informative. Basically, the U.S. Wants it to happen. Russia and China are opposed, which I'm thankful for, that Russia and China are not what they were 20 years ago, willing to more or less go along with U.S. plots, and so it doesn't look like there's going to be a military intervention through the United Nations. But what the U.S. is actually trying to do, if you read the document put forward by Secretary General Antonio Guterres, is they list two options that they're trying to get the UN Security Council to approve, and they're totally bananas. The first one is that Ariel Henry and the UN agree on sending a team of basically military and police advisors from a UN member state. So not through the Security Council, but just they just deputize whether, Canada or whichever country. Canada is the one they want to use. And then Canada just sends in some kind of force to assist the Haitian National Police in basically putting down the protests. And in particular, a guy named Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier, who we can talk about. So, and then the other option that this UN document lists is that the UN Security Council basically outsources this a strike force. So then Canada would send an actual some kind of special ops squad, elite military squad, to carry out basically assassinations of the shantytown leaders that are in this uprising in Haiti. So that's what the U.S. and Antonio Guterres, who's the head of, the Secretary General of the UN, and sadly Mexico is going along with. They're trying to push this through the UN, but I do not think it's going to succeed.
This is crazy. It's crazy. I do want to bring up this part here about Jimmy Barbecue, because I know you did talk about him when we were at the Assange protest. So I do want to go ahead and share this as well, because this is another story where I feel like the U.S. government, the narrative around this particular individual and through mainstream media has not been portrayed in the way I saw, the trailer, or actually the first episode, for your show that you've been working on as well. And I got to tell you, it was very different from what I've seen. So thank you so much for doing that. But can you tell everyone who's watching, what is this issue here with Jimmy, who they also call Barbecue in Haiti?
Right. So Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier is his name. His nickname is Barbecue. And if you watch mainstream media, if you watch Vice, then they say it's because he likes to burn people alive. But the reality is it's because growing up in his neighborhood in Port-au-Prince, there were a bunch of other kids named Jimmy, and his mother happened to be she sold grilled meats on the street to survive, to provide for her family. So they nicknamed him Barbecue. So he's widely known as Barbecue, which it's kind of an interesting name, and you're not sure if it's like supposed to make you like scared or if it's kind of fun or what. But the media has really run with it. It's just his nickname since he was a kid. So the question, who is Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier? This is the guy that the State Department, the U.S. mission to the UN has been talking about repeatedly. If you watch, any of the kind of news media, and he is the leader of a group called the Revolutionary Forces of the G9 Family and Allies, and this group is basically a federation of armed groups, neighborhood self-defense groups that have come together to combat crime, and has actually made incredible strides in Port-au-Prince. They're an anti-crime armed federation that also have they believe in revolution, and they also have social revolutionary programs in their neighborhoods. They provide food, they provide clean water, they clean the streets, they have education for children and activities. Not unlike, the obvious parallel in the United States is the Black Panthers. And,
Yep.
we know how the U.S., what its approach to the Black Panthers was. So this is the very same approach that the U.S. is taking to Jimmy Cherizier, Barbecue, and his group, the G9. There has been an incredible disinformation campaign waged by the U.S. government and all the kind of U.S. regime allied media through the National Endowment for Democracy and so-called human rights groups that it funds. And this whole disinformation campaign has basically created this image of Cherizier as a monster who, if you want, like I said, on Vice, likes to burn people alive, likes to murder people. And and they say that he's carried out basically three main massacres, they allege. But I have investigated these. I've spent a sick amount of time reading all of the reports that have been put out by human rights groups and universities, and it all comes back to U.S. disinformation campaign. There's not a shred of evidence to that proves anything about the allegations that are leveled against him. So to this point, there's been nobody that's really challenged that in U.S. media, and so I'm kind of myself and my co-director of my documentary, Kim Ives, who works for Haiti Liberté. He's the English language editor of this Haitian newspaper. He's the one who turned me onto it. So I should say Haiti Liberté has been the only outlet to challenge it. And then I've kind of come along in the last year as I've investigated it, this whole disinformation campaign. And so Cherizier is the real deal, and he's being targeted by the United States for that very reason.
Right. And just to give people an idea, like this article is called Incite Crime. So they have him here under Incite Crime. And then in the first paragraph here, it says a criminal federation of 9 of the strongest gangs in Haiti's capital of Port-au-Prince. So this is the narrative that Dan is talking about. One of the things go ahead.
Check that out. If you actually, this is really a fascinating case example of this propaganda campaign, because sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's important what you're saying. Incite Crime is funded by USAID. United States Agency for International Development. That's one of its main funders, and it's also funded by George Soros's Open Society Foundation. So it's basically just a propaganda organ. This is part and parcel of Cherizier. So probably when you Googled him, this is like one of the first things that came up, and it's a profile of him, and right. So if you scroll down a little bit, check this out. Let me show you to that paragraph. Okay, that second paragraph. Cherizier has collaborated with the ruling Haitian Tête Kale party. That's the PHTK. That's the party of Ariel Henry and former President Jovenel Moïse, who was assassinated last year. That is a total canard. There is no evidence of that, and that's what the opposition claims, that he's a tool of the government, which is like the stupidest thing possible when you start to actually investigate it. It's like the Trump-Russia, conspiracy theory that was, painfully stupid, but promoted by every single, Western media outlet, basically. So it's like you had to combat it, no matter how asinine. And so that's like the charge against him. And then, calling for revolution in June 2021, as if that's some kind of bad thing to have a revolution in Haiti, the most impoverished country in the Western Hemisphere that, the U.S. just treats like a little piggy bank to exploit. So, it's just remarkable, the propaganda in this, but I thought that was just a perfect little, like, kind of case in point of what I was talking about. So sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead, Sabrina.
Oh, no worries. No, see, this is why it's important to know who's funding these outlets. This is why, like, my audience will tell you, I'm always talking about the money, like, follow the money. This is why that's important to know, because literally when I Googled him, this was the first article that appeared.
Yeah, exactly. And it's almost impossible to find anything that's like that gives him a fair shake. If you trace like the reporting on him, it all comes back primarily to this thing called the Haitian National Network for Human Rights. It's a supposed human rights organization that's funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, which is a CIA cutout, as well as also funded by Open Society, and then also the American Jewish World Service, which I can tell you as a representative of Jews, I don't have anything, we don't have anything to do with that. No, but the American Jewish World Service is just like some giant foundation funded first and foremost by Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, who's like a total diehard neocon. So what does that have to do with like Jewish values or something? I don't know, but they fund this total disinformation shop. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing, dressed up as a human rights outlet, a human rights organization, and they just create disinformation and smear Cherizier or smear whoever they need to, and they've been doing it for decades. And so they created this narrative of Cherizier carrying out massacres in order to basically prepare the Western audiences, prepare us for a eventual U.S. intervention in Haiti to take them out and put down this popular uprising. And so it's pretty, relatively successful, considering very few people know how to like properly combat this kind of disinformation. And the R&D, the Haitian National Network for Human Rights, its acronym is the RNDDH. That's what it's known as in Haiti as. Its leader, the guy who heads it, is named Pierre Esperance. He was a key figure in the 2004 coup against President Jean-Bertrand Aristide, the most popular president in Haitian history. And Pierre Esperance fabricated a massacre, the story of a massacre, in order to pave the way for U.S. intervention. And he used it to round up members of the Aristide government. And then they also, rounded up and killed thousands of Aristide supporters. And so now it's the same exact guy in another human rights organization, because he basically got chased out of the other one because he was such a liar. And he's doing the exact same thing. And, people just, this history is just kind of not known.
Mhm.
because people don't know that much about Haiti. And I've only learned it in the last, 15 months since I dove into this documentary project. But, you know, that's what's going on. It's just a straight up disinformation apparatus demonizing this guy Barbecue in order to pave the way for U.S. Marines or U.S. proxy to go in and do the hit job.
Yes, and to go along with what Dan said here, friendly neighborhood Conrad actually shared this tweet here in reference to that same topic. In 2004, U.S. military forces abducted Haitian President Jean-Bertrand Aristide and forced him out of the country as part of a coup, which included a U.S. UN occupation and the killing and disappearance of 8,000 of Aristide's supporters. And here's a picture here. I'm going to make this a little smaller so you can see. So I mean, how many of us know about this or knew about this?
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, the U.S. the U.S. and UN occupations were absolute heinous crimes against Haitians, and now the U.S. wants to deploy that again. They called them UN peacekeepers, which is just an incredible. It's like humanitarian intervention. It's a total euphemism for something horrible. And actually, the head of the UN mission, Helen Lalim, the UN mission in Haiti, it's called BINU, which advises the government, and she's a longtime State Department official. Helen Lalim the other day says Haitian gangs are raping women, so we have to go in and protect the women.
Mhm.
They're saying the same thing in Ukraine right now, that the Russians are raping people, so raping Ukrainians, so we have to send them more weapons. But the real sick irony, well, for one thing, of course, we saw that in 2011 in Libya. There were accusations that Muammar Gaddafi was giving Black African mercenaries Viagra to
Yep.
rape people, and that was a complete lie, and a straight up racist lie at that. It was completely disproven, and CNN and Al Jazeera ran that, and then it went all the way to Samantha Power and Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice all ran that disgusting racist lie. And then in Haiti, so we've seen this disinformation before. In Haiti, the UN so-called peacekeepers ran what in the media are called child sex trafficking rings. Now that's like a nice way of saying raping children. And there were
Right.
hundreds and hundreds of them involved, and they were never punished. There were Pakistanis, there were Chileans, there were Brazilians raping Haitian children, and there were very few that were ever punished. Hundreds of them got away with it, and the UN now is saying, "Oh, the Haitians are raping each other again, so we have to send in our peacekeepers who were raping Haitian children up until basically a few years ago." So it's just the most, I don't even have words for how
Mhm.
low that is, but that's what we're dealing with here. That's just how disgusting US empire is.
It's crazy. And it's like that excuse too with the protecting the women and the children. They use that excuse for Afghanistan too.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like kind of the neoliberal thing since the 70s is like, it's about, women and children and that kind of thing, instead of like, then you don't have to have a class analysis.
Yeah.
It's totally weaponized. Like, obviously we need, women and children should be protected. So should men and boys and elderly and everybody, but they use it to, they can just create these allegations that the gangs are raping people. And
Mhm.
the truth is that there actually are real gangs in Haiti, which I generally avoid the term gangs because it's so pejorative and it's like loaded. But I mean, what it really means is like criminal armed groups, right?
Mhm.
Who are extorting people, kidnapping for money, raping, whatever it is, those kinds of things. There are real criminal elements. Those are the people that Cherizier is fighting. Those are his actual enemies, because those gangs operate on behalf of all the U.S. tied oligarchs. Um, and, like today, for example, there's a prominent gang leader named Izo, who is an enemy of Cherizier, of Barbecue, and he killed in cold blood, just straight up murdered a police inspector today. And what is the U.S. saying about that? Okay, or how about there's another group called the 400 Maozo, which maybe people remember last year. This group kidnapped 17 missionaries, 16 from the U.S.,
Mhm.
one from Canada. The U.S. doesn't say anything about the 400 Maozo in these UN in this UN document or any of this stuff. All they talk about is Cherizier. Again, that's a group. The 400 Maozo fights against the G9. Um, I can give a few examples. The US says, "Oh, we got to stop the gangs. We got to stop the gangs." But they conflate the criminals with the anti-criminals, like the anti-crime federation, because they want to take out the anti-crime federation. And the other ones serve its purposes because it keeps Haiti destabilized and it keeps people scared and in fear, and the diaspora of Haitians from being able to invest in their country and that they want to see improve. It's just so insidious, the language that the U.S. uses, all this rosy language for peacekeepers and stopping the gangs and all these things. So we
Yep.
just got to oppose this.
So one thing I noticed too, in reference to the protests, like people were saying, "Oh, look at them! Look at these people protesting in Haiti. They're so like unhinged." And some of the words that have been used to describe the protesters in Haiti, and I'm like, well, they should have every right to be angry. They're protesting over fuel hikes, right? And then one of the things that I found in reference to the fuel hikes is that actually affects the water shortage that they have in Haiti. And because they have the water shortage, now they're saying that cholera, which had pretty much been gone from Haiti for years, has now reappeared because if you don't have water, then you have sanitation issues. So people can't wash their hands. And to hear like someone like Ariel Henry tell the protesters to just be calm and calm down, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, people are literally like dying. People are starving. Like, I feel like Haiti is one of those countries that's just very much ignored. I feel like it's either ignored or it's vilified, whether it's the US that's doing it or another country that's doing it. But I feel like people just don't really care about Haiti. But even in reference to the protest, mainstream media, from what I've seen so far, they're not even covering it.
Right, exactly. It's a total blackout in U.S. media. Just like they're ignoring all the anti-NATO protests in Europe. It's
Yep.
like mainstream media is all about just manufacturing reality to kind of suit U.S. interests. The protests in Haiti have been massive. People are actually blockading streets all over Port-au-Prince to like basically shut down the state so it can't function with this criminal in power, this U.S. puppet. In terms of, it's what you said. Haiti is either ignored or vilified. So people have been in the slums of Haiti, right around. Okay, so you have Port-au-Prince. That's where a lot of the trade, international trade comes through. You have the fuel terminal, you have shipping terminals, and like millions and millions of dollars worth of whatever kind of product pass through there on a daily basis. Right next to them, on the other side of like a cinder block wall, you have the worst poverty in the Western Hemisphere. Slums that you can't even imagine how horrible they are, and families packed into a room hardly like bigger than this. Living in just sheer poverty, and no one, and sewage flooding all the time, people living in this, and you never hear anything about it in the media. No one ever wants to talk about the conditions that the people are living in. That never gets touched. The most vilified, ignored, forgotten people in in the world. And so now all of a sudden the US is so concerned about water and gender-based violence and all these things for Haitians, and it's because they're trying to manufacture consent for a military invasion to take out Cherizier. What Cherizier barbecue? What is barbecue doing right now? His group, the G9, is one of many groups that have erected blockades at intersections throughout Port-au-Prince. There are many, many of them. His is at the Vero gas terminal, which is the main terminal where fuel comes into Haiti from outside. So the U.S. is saying, well, he's blocking the fuel, so we have to go in there and take him out for humanitarian reasons. We need a strike force to do this, so Haitians, can get back to the great situation they were in before. The thing is, there's, I think a really important point for people to understand about this blockade on the fuel terminal that the U.S. keeps talking about is these protests were kicked off by fuel price hikes. The IMF told Ariel Henry increase the price of fuel. He doubled it overnight. Okay. So what does that mean? All these poor people who are living on the edge suddenly have no way to go to work, to be able to go and sell their wares, whatever it is, on the street, or go work in the sweatshops. They can't send their kids to school. You can't go out and buy food. So that gas terminal is no longer for you. You are totally priced out of it, and that's by far the majority of Haitians. That gas terminal is only for the rich, the wealthy, who live up in the hills in their mansions overlooking Port-au-Prince. So now that there's this huge protest movement against it, Cherizier says, look, if we're not going to be able to, if we can't get gas, if the poor people can't get gas, you can't either. Then nobody can get gas. And that's what this regime wants, right? That's what the international community, that's what the US, that's what the IMF wants, is that the poor people are cut off. So the U.S. just wants to resume it, to basically cut Haitians off from any kind of ability to sustain themselves and to live.
That's right.
And so they're citing Cherizier has blocked this and challenged them. And if you look at the protests, you can find plenty of video on Twitter or on social media. There's nobody who's calling for barbecue to lift the blockade. What are they saying? They're saying down with Ariel Henry and no to foreign intervention. That's what they're saying. So that whole U.S. line about we gotta free that fuel line, that's totally bogus.
Well said, Dan. I think that there's something else that people might need to be aware of too. And you brought this to my attention. We were talking about there's different anti-war groups, right, that are advocating for Haiti, saying that no, hands off Haiti, U.S. hands off Haiti. But there was something that you mentioned about this at the event in reference to some of those groups. I don't know if they realize this or not, but that in some type of way, this is connected to another movement that you were talking about. So people need to be careful how they frame it. I believe it starts with an M. You have
the
to
Montana Accord. Yeah. So okay.
Yeah.
So the opposition to Ariel Henry, to the so-called interim prime minister, to the little dictator that the U.S. has in Haiti, his opposition is called the Montana Accord. Montana Accord is named for the fancy hotel in Pétionville in the rich neighborhood of Port-au-Prince where it was signed. And it's basically opposition political parties, NGOs, and so-called civil society groups that are all tied to the U.S. just like that are most of which are tied to the U.S. just like Ariel Henry is. The problem with Ariel Henry for the U.S. is that he is totally reviled by essentially all Haitians. They see him as the blatant dictator installed by the U.S. that he is. He was never elected, so he's really a liability for the U.S. to be able to have its beneficial empire that, oh, we're actually trying to help you. We're going to help you by taking out this bad guy barbecue who's blocking the fuel. We need to have our humanitarian intervention, but it just looks too bad. It's too blatant with Ariel Henry in power. So what the U.S. is doing is they've been putting Ariel Henry is kind of expired. So what they've been trying to do is actually get Ariel Henry and this Montana group to make an agreement to hold elections and that kind of thing. Get on with the process. They haven't been able to. And so the U.S. is really putting its weight behind the Montana group, because the Montana group is not just like one guy who they just stuck in and said, you're the prime minister. It's a bunch of people. They can say we have consensus and we are Haitian led. But of course, who are these Haitians that the U.S. has basically selected? Well, the leader of the Montana group, her name is Magali Como Denis. And Magali Como Denis, just like Ariel Henry, the interim prime minister, both of them were very heavily involved in the 2004 coup against President Aristide, this coup that the U.S. orchestrated. So the leader of the opposition and the prime minister, they're trying to kind of like either get to make an agreement or to push out. Both of them are straight up puppets of the U.S. and they both want to take out Barbecue Cherizier and the G9 and put down this popular movement. So there's a lot of support in Washington and a lot of, the New York Times op-eds, Washington Post op-eds, a lot of kind of the liberal intelligentsia are all pushing for the Montana Accord as a Haitian-led solution. But it's like, the U.S. wants these Haitians to be out front, but the U.S. is actually leading from behind. And they are the most fervent in support of U.S. military intervention. And the thing, they actually put out a statement a few days ago saying we don't want intervention, but of course you have Magali Como-Denis leading it, who totally believes in intervention, and the second in command is a guy named Ted St. Dick, who wrote an article about 2 weeks before calling for the U.S. to take aggressive activity to intercept criminals in Haiti and to reinforce security. So it's obvious little euphemisms for military action. So they are just as desperate for military intervention to stave off what is a real popular uprising and revolutionary uprising that threatens U.S. control of Haiti.
This is why I always tell people you have to look beyond the theme and the title or the phrase that's being used, because I make this joke a lot about the Progressive Caucus. I'm like, it's called the Progressive Caucus, but is it really progressive? Right. But people could assume that if they don't look into it. But to show you guys exactly what Dan's talking about, if you see this article here by the Washington Post, so what does it say? It says the Montana Accord is the right move for Haiti. And so you'll hear people make these phrases like the Haitian movement, it should be Haitian led. So they should go with the Montana Accord, but not telling you what the Montana Accord is also connected to.
That's hilarious. I mean, yeah, I saw that before and I kind of forgot. Yeah, so they're all so, it's like the Washington Post has put out no less than 8, the Washington Post editorial board has put out no less than 8 op-eds since July 2021 when President Moise was assassinated, calling for military intervention in Haiti. So they're like, we need military intervention in Haiti and we need, the Montana Accord. So it's like they work hand in hand. That's why, the establishment is so desperate to get them in power. The other kind of part of this is, and really why Haiti not only matters for Haiti itself, but has major implications for the entire world and U.S. empire. So Haiti is the test case for something called the Global Fragility Act. And in order to enact this piece of legislation the U.S. passed, the Global Fragility Act, the U.S. has to get the Montana Accord in. Now, the Global Fragility Act is a State Department, USAID, and Pentagon sort of marriage that seeks to shore up U.S. control over so-called fragile states, which is basically like states like Haiti that the government is very kind of weak and there's popular uprisings and, maybe the U.S. is going to lose control. So it's basically very heavy on Pentagon covert operations. They call them small footprint operations and training of proxies and use of propaganda and psyops. This is all part of the Global Fragility Act. And Haiti, so like I said, Haiti is the test case. They have several other countries listed too, right below Haiti. One is Libya, of course, which remains in total disaster 11 years after a U.S.-led NATO intervention, to stop, supposedly to stop Africans from raping Libyans. And then, so you have Libya, you have Papua New Guinea, which I really don't know the geopolitical situation there. And then several countries in West Africa, Ghana, Togo, Mozambique is one of them, and then there's like one or two more. But so the U.S. wants to basically take this State Department USAID and heavily militarized Pentagon strategy, and test it on these different places. And if you look at history, Haiti has always been the vanguard. It is the country that it was the first slave revolt to succeed and create a nation. Which I mean, a lot of people know that. It started the
Yep.
it started the collapse of chattel slavery and European colonialism. I mean, it was the first in so many ways. In 1990, when 1991, or 1990, I believe, when Aristide was elected, that was the first of the pink tide in Latin America. Afterwards you saw Kirchner in Argentina and Hugo Chavez and Evo Morales. The first one was Aristide in Haiti, and now. So Haiti has very much led the way in progressive change throughout, in the hemisphere and world. And at the same time, it's also punished the most severely for that role. So that's why you see Haiti in the role that Haiti in the condition that it is today, and it's being subjected. It's like a laboratory for U.S. empire that's going to be kind of used all over the world. So that's, another major significance of what's happening in Haiti right now.
Do you think that some of the groups, some of the anti-war groups that are saying, this should be Haitian-led, do you think they know about the connection between like the Montana Accords, or do you think maybe they're in the dark?
I think some of the groups that are kind of on board with that, well, in terms of actual like Haitians in Haiti, there's a group called Molagaf, which I can't remember exactly what the acronym stands for, but it's like a progressive revolutionary movement in a neighborhood called Fort National, and they actually signed on to the Montana Accord originally, and then several months ago they broke off and said, no, we are not going to take part in what they called an imperialist plot. So they realized that these people are totally wolves in sheep's clothing, and that they got kind of snickered and conned into supporting this thing. Then you had the Lavalas party, which is the party of Jean-Bertrand Aristide, that also broke off, though in a much more quiet way. And so what's left is like, it's kind of there's a bunch of infighting in Montana. In terms of the anti-war groups in the US that are supporting it, I think a lot of them, it's kind of like their heart is in the right place. They mean well, but they're not really sure what they're getting into. And maybe, Haitian-led sounds really nice. Like, who could oppose that? What kind of like monster would oppose that? But, you have to take a really hard look at it. And the thing we have to be careful with is to not kind of, lend your kind of progressive credibility to something that is totally imperialist to the core. And, you end up getting used as like window dressing or to like promote something that's totally against the interests of Haitians.
So I don't know if you've seen this. I'm going to share this quick clip here from Claire Daly. And she had something here to say about the history of Haiti. And I think everyone needs to pay attention to this. I think this is incredibly important in reference to why this country is attacked so much by the U.S. government. Listen to this.
Haiti is the site of the first and only successful slave revolution in history. Haitians won their independence from France in 1804 and immediately abolished slavery, becoming the first place in the world to do so. It was also the first state to outlaw racism in its constitution. Haiti was a beacon of light for the world, and it was punished for it. It was punished over and over again by France, by the US, through a series of coups, invasions, occupations, assassinations, through relentless meddling and crushing debt. They were determined that this beacon of freedom would be extinguished because it presented a bold challenge to the dread logic of capital and empire. But the Haitian people kept fighting through. Theirs is a light that never goes out. And so it's still being punished. The meddling goes on. If Haiti is a mess, and it is, then Europe and the US are to blame. If we want to support the Haitian people, and we should, we'll stand up to the US, the world's bully, tell them to get out of Haiti and get out of it ourselves.
What are your thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, that's like what I was trying to say, but she said it about a billion times better. I love Claire Daly. She's incredible. She's her and Mick Wallace, I think is his name, are just, those are two heroes of mine. And she said it in just such a poetic way in that beautiful Irish accent. That was awesome. So she's so spot on. I mean, it's, I was trying to say Haiti's the vanguard. So it's, it's half of an island in the Caribbean, but it plays just an outsized role, and the U.S. is really, focused intensely on keeping it in its grip. I mean, one other thing to consider on why the U.S. is so focused on it. Of course, there's the resource question. There are rare earth minerals. I think there's a lot of oil that's been discovered, oil, gas deposits. I need to look into that a little bit more, that have been sitting there for some years. There's the geopolitical aspect of kind of like, well, if Haiti goes, then what happens to the Dominican Republic? What happens to Puerto Rico? So that's
Right.
could be kind of a domino effect. And then you have Cuba right there, and Venezuela. I mean, if Haiti goes, that would be just total. It would actually be a major blow to U.S. empire. Then I forgot the other thing I was going to say of why it would be so significant. But I mean, you really can't underestimate actually how huge it would be. But I think part of it is like the U.S. just doesn't want to allow an example. It's like Haiti. I mean, that's one of the things Claire Daly was saying. Haiti has served as an example. This is something I need to read up more on, and maybe something about it. But Haitians played important roles. Haitians partook in slave revolts in the United States, and the the founding fathers in the United States, who are hailed as these great revolutionaries, they were horrified by the idea of the Haitian Revolution, of slaves, of freeing themselves. So we as everyone in the Americas owes a huge debt to Haiti, that we're not living in a slave system today. We live in kind of a modern slavery, wage slavery, but Haiti just plays an enormous role for how small of a geographic place that it is.
Well said. And I like that you brought up the fact that like the U.S. like intervening in Haiti could also affect the Dominican Republic. Like they share an island. It could affect them. It could affect Puerto Rico. Like, how far is this going to go? And I want to point out something too, because a lot of times I hear people make this statement of third world countries, but some of these countries are actually rich in resources, which a lot of times is the reason why the United States government is there in the first place. And they drain the resources from those countries, and then the people are left with nothing but rubble. And then when those people try to come to the United States, the U.S. government doesn't want them to come. If you remember last year when Haitian migrants were met at the border, the U.S. government, Joe Biden was like, no, they were like, you can't come here, but you destroyed their country. And
Exactly.
It's just, I think people don't really understand. Like, why would someone make that trek? Why would they make that journey all the way here, as dangerous as it could be? Why would they do that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh no, they just want to come here for like McDonald's and I don't know, like Justin Bieber, because they love our culture, our superior culture. Yeah, I mean, this is the case not only in Haiti, but through so much of the global South, as migration is triggered by destabilization, by coups, by neoliberalism, and Haiti is just such a perfect example of that it's a beautiful country. I mean, honestly, who would want to go live in like, the cold of and tough life of New York City, when you could live in like a Caribbean paradise, where, the land is fertile, but the US has made it totally unlivable, for people. And so huge amounts of them choose to leave. And it's a total crime. And then, like you said, they get here and they get, deported, like, oh, stay out of our country. Stop trying to take our resources. You're criminals, or you bring disease, or, I mean, how many Haitian, I don't even know, but huge amounts of Haitians have been deported. Think of the resources that have been spent on these flights, that the U.S. That ICE um, contracts to private companies to send them on planes back to Haiti. Just the logic of people risk their life going, from Haiti to Colombia, through the Darien Gap, all through Central America and Mexico, and you get to the U.S. and you get taken back on a plane. I mean, there's just something like so unbelievable about that. So like perplexing, that the U.S. is happy to spend resources to destroy people's lives and keep them in suffering and misery. But in terms of doing anything for migrants, or let alone for the people, actual citizens of this country, not a chance.
What was the reception like when you were there, Dan? And I don't know how much you're able to talk about, like your documentary, your project you're working on. I know some of that is probably
No, we
still.
can talk about it. It's
Okay.
all good.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't want to
definitely.
spill the beans if I'm not supposed to, but
No.
what was the reception like for you when you were there? Because for those who don't know, Dan was there. He was filming a documentary in Haiti. Like, for example, like, do most of the people there that you meet, did they speak English, or did you need like a translator? What was it like, the experience?
Yeah, I mean, most Haitians don't speak English. You know, they speak Creole, of course. And I definitely needed a translator for, I mean, aside from, at like our little hotel and that kind of thing. When you go and talk to the masses, definitely you got to have a translator. My co-director for my documentary, Kim Ives, he speaks fluent Creole, so I was really fortunate to work with him, and that's the only reason I've been able to kind of get to the point with my analysis and my understanding of Haiti is following the lead of this outlet, Haiti Liberté, which I really recommend everyone checks out, which is led by Haitians who fled mostly in like the 80s under the U.S. backed Duvalier dictatorship, and have lived in the U.S. and tried to organize um, and then Kim is the English language editor. So I mean, we get accused of like being like two white guys who are going to make this documentary to exploit Haitians and make money. Which, I mean, we're not even making money, number one, but we're actually led by Haitians in this process. It was Kim's editor, a Haitian who sat him down and said, Kim, this is the deal with barbecue. You got to go, fly down there and check it out. And so Kim went and interviewed him. But so the documentary project is called Another Vision, and that's the name of the social revolutionary program that the G9 has, of like feeding people and providing them water and that kind of thing. So we borrowed that name for the documentary, and it is basically shows the background of what the G9 is, who Jimmy Cherizier is, who Barbecue is, what are they doing, how did they come to be, how did this group form. It shows it, and maybe most importantly, it deconstructs the entire disinformation campaign being waged by Washington and its cutouts, and like CIA cutouts against barbecue in order to pave the way for this intervention that the U.S. is trying to carry out.
Yeah, for those who aren't aware, I actually got to see the first episode when we were at this Assange event. They did like a private premiere announcement of it, and after that episode, I was like, "Holy crap!" I was like, and that's only the first episode, because there was so much information packed into that one episode, and I was just like, "Wow, I didn't know any of this, any of that information that was presented."
Yeah, I mean, it's the first episode, I will say, is the most challenging to watch, because it is like a fire hydrant of information just coming at you. But if you can get through the first episode, the second and third are like they're easier to watch. But we had to just cut through the disinformation first.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we're trying to get it, we're like in a full on sprint to get this thing finished and publish it hopefully next week. I wish I had a release date, but I'm fairly confident it will be next week. But yeah, it's 3 episodes, a total of 2.5 hours, and it really just shows the whole backstory of what's happening in Haiti at this very moment.
Okay, Dan. Where can? Oh, sorry, I clicked on something and it got stuck. Okay, there we go. For the documentary, when it's published, where is it going to be published?
That's the other thing we're trying to figure out right now. We're in talks with a couple of different outlets who one of them will end up publishing it. So I'm still not even sure. It's all like going down to the wire. But we'll have it up on I'll be promoting it. So if you check me out on Twitter at Dan Cohen 3000. My Substack, I started a Substack recently, dancohen3000.substack.com. You can see a report I did, a video report that kind of describes some of what I talked about in the interview about the Global Fragility Act, the Montana Accord, and this is September 28th. I published that report, and I reported that U.S. intervention in Haiti is imminent, and now the U.S. is calling for it straight up. So I'm going to pat myself on the back and say I was ahead of the curve on that one, if I can, if that's all right. But yeah, just keep an eye on my social media at Dan Cohen 3000. And then I've actually founded a new outlet called Uncaptured Media. And I'll be rolling that out. So just, I'll have a site up soon. So just keep an eye on social media, and I'll have it out, and, be glad to do interviews, however you want to do it.
Awesome. Dan, thanks so much for coming on and educating all of us tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, I hope you learned something tonight. Again, follow Dan on Twitter so you can keep up with that information and that documentary. Because when that post, most likely he's going to post it on, announce it on Twitter. So definitely follow him there. But definitely, he's doing great work. Like I said, I got the chance to meet him in person. So it was great. It was great. Gonna go ahead and shout out some comments here. And then we're going to get into our next story. And Eric, let me know if there's Rockfin comments as well. Saul says we should make politicians survive on a teacher's salary. Some people have mentioned that, and some people have mentioned, what if politicians made $7.25 an hour? Optimism of the will. Teachers are constantly advocating for their students and their communities. We should return the favor. I agree. Peggy, yep, I had kids who hid extra food in their desk. They dreaded holidays because lack of food at home. It's a true story, guys. It's a serious issue in this country. Bill, because the society doesn't value teachers, so people are not electing school board members that are willing to meet the demands. Bingo. Delthea, you know what else affects students and families? Unappreciated, alienated, and abused teachers. That's right. Goth Cactus, charter schools are part of privatizing education. Yeah, they've been a big problem. Christina, I would spend a lot of money on snacks for my kids because they don't eat at home and the lunch is gross. Poor things, and I can't write it off my taxes. You guys hear this? Christina, I'm assuming, is a teacher. Jay, this is a great topic. There's particularly no foreign country, and my knowledge is weaker than Haiti, sadly. Natalie, it's still unfathomable to me that the Haitians had to pay France after they won their freedom. That was another question I forgot to ask Dan, if they're still doing that. I forgot to ask that question. Desert Mantis, thanks, Sabby and Dan, for educating people on what is really happening in Haiti. Joy, will CNN or MSNBC have on Dan Cohen to give his eyewitness account and journalistic view? Nope. Yeah, that's telling, right? I told you mainstream media isn't really talking about this. Randy, I can't wait. Thank you for your hard work, Dan. And I'll take those comments on Rockfin. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Want to get Massachusetts public schools funding? It's time for a BI to transfer the financing of school districts from the local property tax to come out of the state budget instead. Also, build that state surplus through putting State Senator James Eldridge, Massachusetts Public Bank, to a BI, then make financing of public education mandatory instead of discretionary funding. Provide teachers with housing paid for by Medicare by Massachusetts. I was about to say by Medicare for all. Hey, Sab, got to jump off. Going on a Zoom of how private equity makes us sicker. A forum addressing the increasing role and implications of Wall Street investors in general, and specifically private equity in the healthcare industry. Private equity has become a troubling menace as it seeks to extract outsized profits by buying up healthcare providers. Our speakers will address what private equity is and how it makes money and what are its results. The corporate owners focus on cutting costs, increasing prices, and stripping assets to maximize short-term profits at the expense of providers, patients, workers, communities, and taxpayers. Wall Street actors pose an increasing threat to the passage of single-payer healthcare, which has seen a dramatic surge in popularity among patients, healthcare professionals, and the American public more generally. The increased penetration by Wall Street investors into every sector of healthcare has shifted incentives further away from the actual care of patients. And as financial actors increase their role of healthcare services, their political influence against single payer grows too. Our speakers will discuss their decades of research that has demonstrated how Wall Street and corporate ownership of healthcare has led to worse healthcare outcomes, more inequitable access for patients, and moral injury to physicians and other healthcare workers. See you on Call In maybe, but always remember, kids go to Disney World to have fun, but adults go to Alaska to have fun. Oh boy, inside joke there. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin JVB as well. Okay, we're going to get into our next story here. Now, I did tell you guys a while back that Sysco drivers in Massachusetts had decided to go on strike, also in New York as well. And I do have an update on that story. Unfortunately, it's not the best update. But those strikers have actually been targeted by the police. Now, before I show you what has happened with the police, I do have a quick interview here that was done by the People's Voice Network. This is Andrew. He's also in Massachusetts like me. I've worked with Andrew on other projects as well. And he was actually able to talk to one of the strikers here at Sysco, and he is going to explain to you exactly why they're going on strike and that enough is enough. So I want you to hear his story first, and then we're going to get into this whole episode of the police arresting the strikers. So here we go.
Said I want to be proud to work here. I'm not proud to work here with this going on now. You know, it's like, you're not going to take care of your employees if you just made all this money. You know, it's just not a good look, you know. Yeah.
And this is day 15, is that right?
Day 15, yep. Yep. Yesterday was 2 weeks. Exactly. So day 15. And I don't think a lot of us thought it was going to be this long. Honestly, I think we kind of had 3-4 days, maybe a week. You know, but not 2 full weeks. You know, but I mean, everybody's in it for the long play. We're not going to give up. We're all, you know, and this is bringing us close together as drivers. You know.
So they've been in strike. It's 15 days now, and he did this interview 3 days ago. I put on the captions because I do realize sometimes the Eastern Massachusetts accent can be a little difficult to understand sometimes. So here we go.
Like, we all had each other's back out there now. This is bringing us way closer together. And, you know, this is a solid group. It's a rock solid group out here. I mean, anybody will tell you that. You know, police officers that are here on details, anybody. I mean, we've been good. We've been playing by the rules. We just want a fair contract. We want to get back out there, delivering these customers. And we know some of the customers are upset. Like, I mean, these are customers we dealt with every day for 8 years. It's like, where are you guys? Come on, come back for work. Tell Sysco do the right thing. You know, and that's how we feel too. So hopefully there'll be some resolution soon.
Now, notice he said that they're doing the right thing. They're playing by the rules. He said the police have been here, but, you know, we're playing by the rules. We're doing the right thing. Keep that in mind.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure.
Thank you so much.
So it's
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say just one last thing, if I could ask
Sure.
you. You said you're a soon-to-be steward.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that?
So it hasn't been
A soon-to-be part?
It hasn't been voted on officially.
Got it.
Yeah, but there will be a vote after this.
Got it.
So I'm just trying to do my part. Like I said, I mean, I've worked with these guys 10 years for last 8 years. I'll do anything for them. I do anything for any of the drivers here. You know, we're all in it together. We're one big team out there, just like we're one big team on the spigot line and the strong.
All right. So he says they're one big team out there, just like they're one big team on that picket line. Well, the police seem to feel very differently about this strategy here. As Sysco strike stretches on, 13 are arrested on the picket line. 13. Workers picketed trucks leaving Plimpton warehouse Monday in most contentious episode yet in a 2+ week strike. And there's Sysco. If you guys are wondering, like, well, who's Sysco? If you're not familiar with it, if you've seen like this logo, if you've worked in the restaurant industry, I mean, I've seen this multiple times, like when I used to wait tables, then you're familiar with this logo. I'm just saying they provide the food. Okay. All right. So let's go on. Drivers on strike at Sysco Boston warehouse in Plimpton clashed with law enforcement early Monday morning in an incident that led to 13 arrests. Plimpton Police Chief Matt told the Associated Press that more than 400 Teamster Union members arrived at the Sysco facility and used tractor trailers to block the exits at the wholesale food distributor. So this is what they did. They blocked the exits. And keep in mind, these are the truckers. These are the truckers on strike. So I talked about this recently. Eric did a clip of it, and the clip was titled, the thumbnail was titled "To Truck or Not to Truck." So what you got to understand is that Sysco distributes food not just to restaurants, but to nursing homes, so many different other industries throughout the country. They are very much important. So just letting you know that. So let's go back in. Now, the action slowed delivery trucks and stopped about 100 employees from leaving. Officers negotiated with picketers for 2 hours. Al added, but over a dozen people were ultimately arrested on charges including disorderly conduct and assault and battery. Additional charges are being investigated. After the attempted negotiation to move union members out of the roadway to create a safe, passable environment, unfortunately, we had to respond by removing members of the crowd who were inciting a hostile picket line. Now, you know, they like to use this word hostile a lot. And it's something, hold on. My husband is listening to this in the other room and I can hear my voice. Hold on. Babe. Okay, thanks. All right, sorry. Hostile picket line. So they like to use that, right? A video captured by WCVB taken in pre-dawn gloom and timestamp before 6 a.m. shows that several Plimpton and Marshfield police officers on the scene and multiple people loaded into the back of a police van. I'm going to show you that video in just a second. Now, it goes on to say, Sysco normally sends 140 trucks out a day from its Plimpton facility for restaurant and food service customers in and around Massachusetts, including Fenway Park, which, by the way, won't have no games right now. We are not in the playoffs. TD Garden, Gillette Stadium, Cumberland Farms, and Wahlburgers. Wahlburgers is Marky Mark's family's restaurant here, and they're in other cities now, too, as well. The warehouse stocks 13,000 products, according to the company's website. So, Teamster organizer Brian said between 30 and 50 police officers have patrolled the strike since it began in early October. Well, that's a wonderful use of our tax dollars. 30 to 50 police officers to police a strike. Don't they have crime to solve? All right, let's go. It goes on to say, when around 300 union drivers walked off the job to demand wage increases, a revived pension plan, and the assurance that they can remain on the Teamsters Local 653 health insurance plan. So this was another thing that they were going to remove away from them was the health insurance. They were going to change the health insurance plan. You see why health insurance should not be tied to your employer? This is just another example, right? So this happened, and they have every right to strike, and they have every right to protest. Now, I want to show you the video. Now, this was shared on Twitter. More Perfect Union tweeted this update. Police in Boston are arresting striking workers at Sysco, the world's largest food distributor. Local outlet WCVB reports a massive law enforcement presence and multiple people being loaded into the back of the police van. So here's that video. So here we go.
Hold that line! Hey, close those doors. On three. Hey, side cage. Nine, side cage. I got flesh right here.
Again, why do you need that many police officers there? Watch the see the number. So they're trying to hold the line. When at first I was like, oh, it's not that many cops. Yeah, and I looked around and I saw there were. You see this? So JB brought up something I was going to mention here. Cops, union members arresting other union members. Does that make sense to you guys? The fact that here are these guys that are a part of a union, the Sysco truckers, and then you have the police department that is also a part of a union, and they're going to arrest other union members. Terrible. I back the truckers, guys. We got to back the truckers.
Okay, side cage. Nine, side cage. I got flesh right here.
Look at all those cops. Look. So shout out to More Perfect Union for that. Thank you so much for sharing that video. But they realize like the truckers can have a great impact. Because again, this is Sysco. They deliver the food. So you want to talk about a general strike? The railroad workers still have not reached an agreement. The Sysco truckers have not reached an agreement. I would like to see the Sysco truckers and the railroad workers unite, and that's your general strike. I said before, add in the port workers as well, but honestly, we don't really need them at this point. You take the railroad workers and you take the truckers, there's your general strike. And the federal government will have no choice but to act immediately because you need to have the food. Sylvia says, like I've been saying for years, it's time to clean out the pig pen. We got to stand with the truckers, you guys. I did contact them, by the way, the Sysco Teamsters, because I wanted to see if they were able to come on to our activist summit this weekend. We have that at RBN Saturday and Sunday. But I spoke with the organizer, but he said he has to check with his boss. So, yes, even union members have a boss. So just keep that in mind. But if they can, that would be great. That would be great. JB says Haitian people are treated as lower in the U.S., even by Black people in the U.S. I live in a highly populated area where Haitians live. That is true. I've noticed that. I've noticed it. MJ, thank you so much for the super chat. Thoughts on Schiller Institute / LaRouche org, one of the few serious orgs promoting alternative global economic model. Most leftists write them off. I have to look into that more. I don't know as much about it. I know there was this event that Jackson Hinkle and Hawes, and I believe Jose also attended that event, but I don't know as much about that. I really don't. Thank you so much for the super chat, comrade. Soldiers of oppression. That's right. And LB says truckers are very important in this country. I'm telling you, man, do you know the type of demands that the truckers could really make because we need them so much? Think about it. Call me. Let's have the conversation. Now, I want to go ahead and get into our last story, and this is going to lead us into our call-in segment tonight. You know, Kanye West, he's oh boy. Let's just say he has not been having the best week and a half, right? So he's made some statements. He's done some things. And at first I was like, I don't know if I really want to talk about this. But then I thought about it and I was like, duh, I did talk to the family members, so I probably should have this conversation. If you have not been paying attention, Kanye West has recently made a statement about George Floyd's death. And George Floyd's family is not happy about that. So much to the extent that now legal actions are being taken. Now, before I get into what he said and what the family is doing, I want to show you a clip from an interview that I did last year. Now, this interview was with George Floyd's uncle. A lot of people don't know about this because this was like, I only had like 2,000 subs when I did this interview, I think. And he found me. And so the name of this interview is George Floyd's Family Interview with Selwyn Jones. So Selwyn Jones is George Floyd's uncle. And there was something that he said here in this interview. I want you to hear this piece first before I get to the Kanye part. Let me make sure I got this right. Hold on. Yeah, I got it right. Because I want to prove a point. So I want you to listen to what he said about his nephew. Again, this was George Floyd's uncle. Listen to this.
Coast South. Every time I see a black man getting tortured on television, Ahmaud Berry, Breonna Taylor, I'm thinking, damn, somebody stop this. I hate it when I see it because it reminds me of where I grew up and how I grew up. And I'm sitting there looking at the television and I'm thinking, man, why don't somebody help this dude, man?
Yep.
Look, they're going to kill him. My sister calls me and says, did you see what they... And I set the phone down. And I sat back in my chair, and that was probably the worst 7 minutes of my life. After watching him for 30 seconds, you knew that the black guy was going to die in this movie. You knew that you never once thought he was going to get up and walk away. You knew the only way the black guy was going to leave this is he was going to die in this movie. And it ripped my heart out. I literally watched him go from hollering, from laughing to joking, to hollering, to screaming, to begging, to pleading.
Yeah.
He calls for my sister. And, the hardest week I've had in my life was 2 weeks ago when they dissected every frame. And the frame that got me was, I know what time he died. I know the exact time he died. He died at 8:26 with 15 seconds. And what they showed is when his brain lost oxygen, his eyes fluttered, and he died. He died because of hatred, power, and control.
Okay. Now that's a clip from that interview when I interviewed George Floyd's uncle. Again, that's on my channel. That was over a year ago, almost 2 years ago. Geez, or a year ago. It was over a year ago. So let's see what is happening now. So Kanye West has made this statement about George Floyd's death. So I wanted you to hear what his uncle said about the timing and about the process about George Floyd dying. Notice how he remembers every detail about that. You know, it's a family member. You know, how many of you sitting at home had to see your family member killed on national television over and over and over again? So I wanted you to see what that was like for someone who's a part of his family, because I think that's something that we may not really think about sometimes. The whole world saw that video. The whole world. But at the same time, like, we could look at the video and we could feel remorse and sorrow, frustration, despair, hopelessness, loss, right? But he wasn't our family member. Now I want you to imagine it was someone in your family. And knowing that everybody across the world saw that happen to your brother, your sister, your mother, your nephew, your niece. Everyone saw it. So not only do you have to deal with the pain of losing a family member, which most people would have been able to do privately, you have to deal with the pain that comes from the public, the people who doubt it, even the people who didn't doubt it, but still they're in your face. They want a story. They're out there. He contacted me. He found me on Facebook. And so imagine having to deal with something that for a lot of people can be very private and kept private. Imagine having to deal with it publicly. And here we are, years later, and people are still talking about it, right? So then all those emotions, imagine if you're George Floyd's daughter, or you were, his uncle or his brother or his sister. Imagine, here comes all that pain coming right back up again. Now I want you to think about that. Now here's what Kanye West had to say. And a lot of people have shared this on Twitter. I'm going to play what he said, and then I'm going to tell you what's happening with George Floyd's family now. And we're going to talk about this on Call-In tonight. Because the question that I have, do you think the family is right to sue? And also, what do you think needs to happen here with Kanye West? Because I don't agree with censorship. I don't. But I think at the same time, there is something going on with Kanye West. It's not just this particular incident. It's multiple incidents. But listen to what he said here. So here we go. This was an interview that he did on this channel on YouTube called Revolt. Listen to what he said here. It's a longer interview, but this is the piece that a lot of people are raving about.
George Floyd documentary that Candace Owens put up. One of the things that his two roommates said was, they want a tall guy like me. They want a tall guy like me. And the day when he died, he said a prayer for, 8 minutes. Mm-hmm. He said a prayer for 8 minutes. They hit him with the fentanyl. If you look, the guy's knee wasn't even on his neck like that. When he said mama is his girlfriend. They said he screamed for his mama. Mama was his girlfriend. It's in the documentary. But something that hit me, that fucked me up when I was watching the documentary, and it said, they want a tall guy like me. When I looked at that image of him, this tall black dude with the bald head, he reminded me of somebody else. Who you think he reminded me of?
Virgil.
He reminded me of Virgil. You know what I'm saying? I'm not finna cry in front of y'all because that's how they get me, right?
All right.
But I know that we lost him. And I know that this white company, Louis Vuitton, is now making statues of him, like as a martyr. And we don't know why Exactly. We say it's cancer.
But I mean, all right. I want to be careful with this subject because.
Wait a second, but tell me, could you even really run this interview? Because Mav didn't run my interview.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They blocked me out. The Jewish media blocked me out. This shit lit, right? I'm lit, right? I'm lit. I'm lit. You know what I'm saying? JP Morgan, I put $140 million into JP Morgan and they treated me like shit. So if JP Morgan Chase is treating me like that, how they treating the rest of y'all?
That's outrageous, yeah.
And this murderers with Chase accounts.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I am outraged.
Okay. I want to be respectful of what I say here, but it's interesting to me that Kanye is willing to quickly believe some documentary that Candace Owens did, that Candace Owens put out. But he's not willing to believe the eyewitnesses that were at the scene. I know that he said before that the doctor tried to tell him that he has bipolar disorder. And Kanye West has said before that he disagreed with that. And other people around him have also said that he wasn't taking his meds or he stopped taking his meds or whatever at some point. And this is not to shame people that have mental illness. The problem with this in particular, the guys who interviewed him, I think my response to this would have been, Kanye, why didn't you stop and ask, why was Candace Owens so desperate to do a documentary about a police officer killing a black man who was unarmed, by the way? Why was she so desperate to do that? Because I had to tell you again, this should never have been a left-right issue. Not once. Politics should have never been involved in this incident with George Floyd. But the media made it that way. Mainstream media, I mean. They made it that way. So here come people like Candace Owens. Let me see how I can make money off of this. Because let's be real, that's what it's about. It's not like Candace Owens actually really care out there to, I really want to protect the police officers. Candace looking to make money. Candace looking to write another book. Let's be real. And I think that she's able to take advantage of someone like a Kanye West because it's like, listening to him. He all over the place. Me and JB talked about this a couple days ago, not with this particular incident, but with another one. He's all over the place. 1 minute he's complaining about racism. Then the next minute he's complaining. It's like he's saying there is no racism. He was all over the place in that Tucker Carlson interview. So even if this is something that Kanye West believes, you mean to tell me you're not going to stop and question the motive? And now he's gone on to sign on with Parler, which Candace Owens is a part of. Now, the family is not happy about this. And this came out today. George family's preps $250 million lawsuit against Kanye West. $250 million. So here we go. The family of George Floyd is planning to sue Kanye West and his associates for $250 million in damages over the rapper's false statements about George Floyd's death. Roxy Washington, who is the mother of Floyd's daughter, plans to file the suit on behalf of the child, who is a minor. The family is accusing West and his business partners and associates of harassment, misappropriation, defamation, and infliction of emotional stress. Now, let me just jump in here for just a second. I'm gonna have to delay the call in a bit. You know, when Candace Owens and Kanye West are making these statements that they make about George Floyd, do they ever stop and think about how that might make his daughter feel? Do they ever stop and think about that? And even if that is how you felt or what, why do you got to come public with that? Where's the respect for the family? Let's go on. Now, here's the tweet here from Matt Sullivan. He said, lawyers of George Floyd's daughter plan to file $250 million lawsuit versus Kanye West. Kanye's comments are repugnant attempt to discount George Floyd's life and to profit from his inhumane death. We will hold, whoopsie. Oh, it went there. Okay. We will hold Mr. West accountable for his flagrant remarks against Mr. Floyd's legacy. And here is the immediate release right here. For immediate release. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, this idea here about profit from his death, that's what this is about to me. I feel like they're trying to make money. I feel like they're trying to make money off of it. Candace Owens don't do nothing for free. So here we are. Now I want to go back to this article because it did jump. Okay, here we go. Now it goes on to say, according to a statement, Floyd's family issued a cease and desist letter to West over his comments on Drink Champs. During the appearance, the rapper falsely claimed that Floyd wasn't murdered by former police officer Derek Chauvin, but that he died of fentanyl. It's currently unclear if those aforementioned associates, including Candace Owens, as West plucked the debunked claim about Floyd's death from her new Daily Wire produced documentary, The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. If you look at the guy's knee, that's that whole statement he made there. Lawyers for Floyd's family did not immediately return Rolling Stone's request for comment, nor did a representative for Kanye West. Now, $250 million for Kanye West probably isn't much, just to be honest with you. But I think it's interesting to me that it's easy for him to deny the narrative that's coming from the eyewitnesses on the scene. I'm not even talking about mainstream media. I'm talking about the people who were actually there. It's easy for him to deny that, but it's not as easy for him to deny this documentary that Candace Owens put out. The eyewitnesses that were there on the scene didn't make money off of this. Candace Owens is. That's my problem. But I want to hear from you guys. And I got to tell you, by the way, it was also announced that Kanye West has lost sponsors, that companies are pulling their sponsorships from Kanye West. So like an athlete would have an endorsement, companies are pulling those away. But it wasn't because of this. The companies were pulling away because of the remarks that he made about Jewish people. So they said that he made anti-Semitic remarks. So they started to pull their sponsorships for that. Not because of this, though. You see that? Maybe that'll change later on. But right now, not because of this. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But like I said, the past week and a half, Kanye West has not been, it's just not been doing too well. publicly. And I feel like he's always had this ego and has always had this me, look at me like persona. I felt like he's always been that way as long as I can remember him being in the music business. When he said in that interview, they tried to shut me out. They tried to shut me out. I've heard him say that before, years ago. They try to do this to me. They try to say that to me. They try to do this. They try to do that. It's always I, me. It's always about Kanye. There's a lot of ego. And you got to wonder what it's really all about. But I know this. I know one damn thing. Teaming up with Candace Owens is not good news. I know that. All right, Eric, I think we can go into the break. We're going to do the call in tonight. I know I don't usually do it on Tuesday, but I do want to talk about this because I want to hear what you guys, how you feel about it. I want to hear from you. So let's go.
All right. How's everybody doing? This is the time of the show where we give Sabby a little break before we go into the call-in. I'll put it in the chat again. There's the link for the call-in, and there's you can also do call-in on your phone with the app, Call-In Social Podcasting, and that's where you get to give your say and what you think about all this Kanye stuff. And we also have some chats that came through here, people giving their say. Let's see. This from Emoji. Imagine being able to say anything and people have to pretend you are making any sense. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a big part of the whole thing with fame and money and really getting to that level where everybody around you is a sycophant. And I don't know, people are like dying to get to that level. And I don't know, man. I think most rich people are miserable, but from LB, Candace Owen loves her bag of cash. That is for sure. We got from Worry Pilgrim. See if I got that right. The buzzards are circling around him looking for their next meal. From Kanye, yep. And from Quantum Alchemist, do such people not hear themselves talk? I guess not. And that's a good question, how that works. But there's obviously this lack of self-awareness that plays into it all. From She's Black, black celebrities love making money off of our pain. Black celebrities don't mind being the face of white supremacy. Yep, you got it there. From Delthea, I find that label of grifter is overused, but not with regards to Candace Owen. You can't call her a grifter enough. And also had this good one from Delthea. Kanye's net worth is estimated as $2 billion. He should be sued for every dime of his wealth, and he should lose it all. And we'll see also if Delthea wants to dial into the call-in, which we always like to hear from her, and see if she can say more about this in person. And then I saw JB was in the font. JB Font was in the chat after a little while, towards the end here, and he was giving some good chats. But he said, "Got to go. Have a great night, everyone. We'll be with ADC on the People's Voice Network." All right, from Mr. JB, and let's see. I think that catches us up on our chats, and Sabby will be back here soon, and then jumping into the call-in. This is our little transitional time. One thing, actually, I'll get my chance to put my 2 cents in on the topic at hand, which is about Kanye West's recent comments around George Floyd, and the idea of whether or not they should sue him, whether the family should sue, and it's always a little bit tricky. It is. You definitely, in terms of dealing with speech, I think you want things like lawsuits and things are certainly a better approach than things like just the censorship or just having, Zuckerberg decide who should be able to talk or not. So it is a mechanism. It certainly can go either way or be overused and whatnot. It can be a little tricky in that kind of a suit to actually be proving damages. There is the idea of slander. I mean, it is a thing. I guess it would come down to what's on the books and what kind of things you can get recompense for. But I don't know. It seems like if they can make it really work, it's worth a shot. He certainly got the money to go after. And then, and of course the things that Kanye said were, just ridiculous and not factual. And there's the idea of certainly doing emotional damage. They may also be, I would even you could go after things like Candace Owen for making money off it, because I think that's another angle you can really push on a suit like that, is to say, well, they made money from lying about what happened to George Floyd, therefore there's a real liability there that you can go after. So that may also be an angle of it. Let's see here. I just saw Juliet posted, I think the Floyd family is actively in court or what have you, and it ruins the case when people say that. I think that was in response to something else. See, that's what you get here when you're trying to speak on this and look at the chat at the same time. It can be challenging, but it's interesting. The chat can be like a little fire hose sometimes, but we definitely want to hear from everybody, and you really have your chance to tell us what you think on the call-in, which will start soon. Sabby's going to be popping back any moment now, but in the meantime, I can also mention there was the earlier topic of the schools and the teacher strike, and one of the things that really comes into it is the disparities in funding between the rich districts and the poor districts. And you see it all over the country, and even at a place like Massachusetts, where generally the schools are better, the teachers are paid more in general, but there's still this big disparity from the richer neighborhoods to the poorer ones. And one thing you can do to address that is, of course, address the funding. And on a state level, there's no reason to be funding these things with local taxes. That's like the absolute worst thing. So you could certainly at least fund the taxes through the state funds. And I think even better would be to come up with a funding scheme where basically you fund all the public education on using federal dollars, and just do it on a per student basis, and you kind of have the funding disparity solved if you do that. So we'll make it one of our demands, and I do want to talk at some point more about demands, but that's not tonight's topic.
That's right. The public school funding, something needs to change with that.
We can fix
something
it.
Definitely needs to change with that, because it's just, you see the problems that come about because of it, right?
But we need to be talking about the fixes too, right?
Yeah.
All
like
right.
The federal government can fund it. And I'll give you guys an example. Okay, so my parents were military. I went to Dodge schools overseas. Those are funded by the federal government. The Dodge schools have everything. We never had a lack of resources. I didn't have to pay to participate on a sports team. I didn't have to pay for my instrument, my clarinet, to be a part of band. You guys see what I'm saying? So why is it that children that have parents that are in the military get to have all those resources, but they can't do that for all the kids in the United States, period? Something to think about. Okay,
right,
so
on to
tonight,
Colin. See you there.
tonight's call-in episode 47, Kanye remarks about George Floyd. Kanye has come under attack about recent remarks about George Floyd's death. The family is now filing a lawsuit against him. And what are your thoughts? So we are going to scoot on over to call in. That link is pinned to the top of the chat. See you guys over there. I want to hear your opinions about this. I want to hear what you think. So come on over to Call In. All right, guys. You know how we do this? Tomorrow's Wednesday. I'm not here. I'll upload clips and I'll be back on Thursday. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.